somewhere in Dreamland.
It looked like the complexion of a dead person in a casket.
Random memories of waking up in the night, knowing I'm not alone in the room.
We have 3 cities that all claim to be the UFO capital of the entire world.
So when she turned on the kitchen light, it stopped walking.
My parents told me these things didn't exist.
They're a little more ominous, creepy, scary, and the question is there, what is this thing?
Hovering just inches from the window was literally is what you'd imagine a grave to be.
Never seen anything like this in my life.
I'm still left with more questions than answers.
Welcome back, dreamers. If you've had an encounter, please contact me at somedreamland@gmail.com, find me on social media at somedreamland podcast, or check out the show's new website, dreamlandpodcast.weebly.com. If you're enjoying the show, please help it grow by subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing this episode with friends, family, and social media. Tonight, my guest is Thomas L. Hay. Thomas is the author of 4 books: The Comeback Kid, his personal memoirs, An Abduction Revelation, Abduction Revelation 2, and The Abduction Chronicles. With these books, Thomas unravels the questions: who are the abductors? Where are they from? And do they even exist? So without further ado, grab your blanket, turn down the lights, get comfy, and let's fade away into
Dreamland.
I'm joined here tonight with Thomas L. Hay. He's an author of several books. How many books have you written, Thomas?
Actually, I published 4.
Okay. And what are the basis of those books?
I'm sorry, what was that question?
What is the basis of your books?
The basis of my books. Okay, what happened was I had always inspired to be an author, but I never had the time because I worked, in a real job. And so after I retired, I got to thinking, well, I got plenty of time on my hands now, so I was thinking about writing a book, but I didn't know what to write about. So my wife, she says, why don't you do your memoirs? You've had a very interesting life. And I got to thinking about it, and I go, well, yeah, you're right. So I started out writing my memoirs. And then after I wrote my memoirs, there's some thing, after you've gone through and examined your life from birth to right up to that particular time, I got to think there were some things that happened in my life that I started thinking more about. And the one special thing was that my first wife had always claimed that we, during our short marriage, had been abducted by aliens. And I didn't remember it, but she was avid about it. And I really never believed her. I always thought she was kind of crazy, having those kind of thoughts. How would she know about it? And I wouldn't. And, but after I wrote my memoirs, I got to thinking, what if she was right,
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things that she told me was how she found out. She said that this was after we were divorced. She was living alone. She said she fasted and abstained from sex, and that cleared her mind, and it enabled her to melt the aliens' mind blocks they had installed in her. I mean, this is coming from her now, okay?
Yes.
And so she always had claimed that, like, you know, so after I wrote my memoirs, like I say, I got to thinking, what if she was right? So I decided, well, I'm just going to fast for 30 days and abstain from sex and see what happens. And lo and behold, this story popped up into my mind. I didn't even have to think about it. I sat down at the keyboard and I went from page 1 to the last page without even thinking about the story. The story was just there in my mind. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like a lot of times authors, they struggle finding things to write about. You know, sometimes you hit writer's block. I didn't have any of that. The story just went from, like I said, page 1 to the very ending, like it was embedded in my mind. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So that's how I started out. My second book, I called it, of course, my memoirs, I called The Comeback Kid. And then in this book that I wrote, I called it An Abduction Revelation. And then I followed it up with part 2. I only did part 1, and then I did part 2, and I called it Abduction Revelation 2. And then I got to thinking after I published those 2 that I would really like for it just to be one book. So my people can just read one book, you know?
Yeah.
And it wasn't, both books weren't so, you know, thick or had that many pages that I couldn't make it into one book. So that's when I got the idea to publish the Abduction Chronicles, and made my first 2 books into just one book.
Okay. Now the Abduction Chronicles. Let's talk about that. Now,
The what?
The Abduction Chronicles. Let's talk about that for a second. Now, that book that's really the 2 books combined, and was your experience after fasting and abstaining from sex for 30 days. That's what came to your mind. Now, do you believe those?
Yeah.
Do you believe it to be true? Like what truly happened to you?
Well, you know, that's debatable. After I wrote the book, after I wrote the book, I said, you know, there's no way this could be true, you know? I mean, this has got to be my imagination. You know what I mean? Because when you get into the book, you know, see, I can't really get into who the abductors were, because then that would be a spoiler. So I'll just call them. I won't call them aliens. I'll just call them abductors. But then I got to thinking, there's always the possibility that the abductors really do exist, and that they have manipulated my mind as to convince me that my reality is just my imagination.
Yeah, it's a good possibility.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, there's always that. How would you say? Always that possibility.
Yeah. Now, have you ever thought about, or have you thought about getting, undergoing like hypnosis to actually go back in time and see what happened? That's a pretty popular thing among abductees.
Yeah, that's true. No, I haven't really thought about that because I might be a little bit afraid of knowing the truth. Because if that was the case, my whole world would turn upside down, and so would all my a lot of other people's beliefs. You know.
Yeah, that I completely understand that.
One thing, though, I know when I'll find out the truth is when I pass and I go to heaven, And I think I will find out the truth then. The absolute truth.
Yes, sir. So, walk me through a little bit of this book. You don't have to give any spoilers away, anything like that. Just the basic premise of your book.
Okay, you mean like a synopsis or book description?
Yeah, just to get the listeners interested.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I got on the back of the book, okay?
Okay.
I put down, it's a curious chronicle that takes you on a roller coaster ride, weaving through a blend of true events of the author with his seemingly vivid imagination. His ex-wife claimed they were abducted by beings who were not of this world. He was unaware of them until he melded their instilled memory blocks. And oh my God, what he believes was his imagination, could it actually be his reality? Then I go on and say, the Abduction Chronicles is an intriguing adventure packed with action, drama, mystery, romance, comedy, and a few exhilarating plot twists that will have you scratching your head. He said, join the kid on his incredible life's journey as he unravels the secrets behind the abductions and comes face to face with his abductors.
Right. So, is the book partially true and partially made up then, do you think? Or you're not even sure?
Well, I know that I wrote the book like I wrote my memoirs. I wrote it in a conversational style, like you and me sitting down, having a cup of coffee, and I'm telling you this story. You know, the story's coming out of my head, and you're sitting there listening to me. I even asked you questions, you know. During while I'm telling you the story, I ask you, do you actually believe this, or do you think this is true? And then things like that.
Yeah. So, after writing this book, do you feel like you have a better do you feel like you had a better picture of what may have happened to you after writing this?
No.
It just gave you more questions, didn't it?
Just gave me more questions. You're right. So, who are the abductors? Where are they from? What do they want? Okay? Well, I answer all these questions in the book. But even though I answered all the questions in the book, it's just like I said at the very ending, there's always that possibility that whoever those abductors were, of course I found out in the book, but I don't want to tell you because it'd be a spoiler.
Right.
But if they really did exist, and that if they or did they just did they manipulate my mind to convince me that the reality is just my imagination now? See what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what does your ex-wife think of this book? Did she get to read it?
My ex-wife?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes. I think she did. I don't think she did. No, she read my memoirs. Okay, and she was, even after she read my memoirs, she called me. She called me up one time after she read my memoirs and told me that. Have you got access to my website?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. You might, before you publish your podcast, you might go on my website and look at some of my blogs.
Okay.
On some of my blogs, I have I started out with my blogs. There's a phone call that I got from my ex-wife, that was real interesting, and there's also some stories that are in the book. I took out individual stories in the book and wrote blogs on them.
All right. Yeah, I'll make sure I include your website in the show notes so that everybody can go take a look at that themselves as well.
Yeah, what have you got for my website?
I just went on there to see what I could find out. As much as I could find
you
out.
got www.thomaslhay.com.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's it.
So do you have any other books in the works that you're thinking about writing?
No, I haven't. My mind is completely blank now. I can't think of anything to write about. Like I said, I didn't even have to think about writing this book.
Kind of like an automatic writing thing, huh? It just came out of you.
It was like it was a memory, and I'm just writing it down,
Interesting. Now, do you follow what's going on in the UFO community right now? Are you following that at all?
Oh, yeah.
And how do you feel about that?
Well, I think if you have noticed the news here in the last month or so, there's really been some more sightings that are really having a lot of people pay attention to, because a lot of people are coming through, especially pilots, military pilots. Have you seen what's been happening in the last month or so?
Oh yeah, they're finally starting to come forward because pretty much the government said that these things do exist and they're not sure what they are, so they can't really come forward and do that and then call their pilots crazy anymore, can they?
No, not hardly. But then again, if the government was to let you know what was really going on, it would change the history of mankind. You know what I'm saying? It would probably, and then they can't have that.
I believe
they would have people.
I believe we'd trust them a little less as well.
Right. But the government can't have people know the truth, because if they did, then it would be a whole different world.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Now, do you think that you've been visited or abducted since you've written these books?
Since I read the books?
Yes, sir.
I have no clue. I have my life seems to be normal, but like I say in my book, the abductors can do wonders with your mind and make you think the way they want you to think.
Yeah, I believe that. I totally believe that. I've talked to quite a few people that have been abducted, and they all claim pretty extraordinary things that they can do. Like the one guy I talked to, his name is Michael Allens. He claimed that they made themselves look like his cat at one point. So it's crazy.
Cat.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you what, you can't laugh, because that's it's something that if it happens to somebody else, it might be a joke, but when it happens to you, it's reality.
That's it. I tell everybody, I don't ever judge anybody's story. It's their story. It isn't my story to judge.
Right.
But one of these days, all those people that do think it's funny and do laugh at you, whenever they have an experience, they're going to come to you and I to find out what's going on. They aren't going to be laughing then,
What I recommend my readers to do is to read my memoirs first, because I know that was before I got to thinking about what my ex-wife was saying. That's my memoirs, and because you can see how I wrote the second book. Then I took it off of true life stories that we had, like the story about the Arabian, the forbidden love that I had. Did you read that?
I have not yet. No, sir.
Yeah, I had a forbidden love during my life, and And when I wrote the, I couldn't, when the publisher wanted to, when I published it, you have to have a genera.
Okay.
And I couldn't figure out what, is it a memoir? Is it a science fiction? I couldn't figure out what genera to put it in.
Yeah.
So I had to choose one. So I went ahead and put it under science fiction and fantasy. But like I say, it's actually written like a memoir.
Okay. How long do you think this went on? Do you know how long this went on?
Okay. Are you talking about the Abduction Chronicles? According to my wife, we were abducted. This is in my memoirs.
Okay.
We were abducted on our honeymoon when we first got married. We went on a honeymoon out in Carmel, and those were the first abductions. And you should read, if you read my memoirs, I got a whole bunch of letters from her after we were divorced. I got a whole bunch of letters from her that just did not make any sense at all. At the time, I just read them, but I saved them. And then when I went back to write, okay, I'll just give you an example of one of the letters, okay?
Okay.
Let me see here. The very first abduction occurred when we were going to, we ran off and got married.
Okay.
We went down to Oklahoma, Nowata, Oklahoma. That's when she told me that I can remember going down there, and we had a hard time finding the courthouse. And I remember us ending up out in the country somewhere. And then the next thing I remember is that we were at the courthouse and we got married. But later, after we got divorced and she remembered all this stuff, she said that when we were out in the country, we saw all these cows were all staring at something. And she hollered at me to stop the car. She wanted to see what the cows were looking at in the field. I got out, and she told me that I saw a golden thing in the sky, and that she saw something come down and place her hand on my forehead, and that I was in a stupor because I didn't remember any of this. And then it disappeared again, and that when I got back to the car, she was asleep. But I guess she saw all this, and it was like a dream to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she saw this, that something had placed her hand on my forehead. And then later on in our honeymoon, we went out to Carmel monasteries, and we were staying in this one place, and she said that during the night she was abducted. They took her somewhere and did something to her. She was pregnant at the time with her first child, and she said that when she got back to the next morning, when she woke up back in a hotel room, she had a scar right below her belly button. She never told me this until, I'd like to say, after we were divorced.
Okay.
But she had a scar right under her belly button that was like 3 or 4 inches long, and it looked like a zipper.
Wow, that's interesting.
And she said that the scar eventually disappeared in 2 or 3 weeks, which is pretty fast for a scar to go away.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting because a lot of abductions do happen to women who either are pregnant or have just given birth.
Yeah, she was pregnant at the time, so she said they did something. She saw our unborn child like floating in the air.
All right.
During this time that she was abducted.
Okay.
And this is what she told me.
Now, have your children ever said that they've had any experiences that you know of?
Nope.
Okay. That's pretty common too. I mean, so I was just curious about that.
Well, they read my memoir, and a lot of that stuff was new to them. I mean, I didn't really discuss any of that with them. Of course, after we were divorced, she had the kids, so I didn't see them very much.
Do you still talk to her at all?
She passed away about 5 years ago.
Okay. Do you know if she had any experiences after the fact, after the ones that you spoke about?
If she had, she was probably reluctant to tell me because I was always so negative and always told her, you got to be crazy, and that's, to believe that shit,
Yeah.
She just probably didn't want it, wouldn't have told me because I just thought she was crazy, So I don't know if she did have or not, but she, I know my daughter, she might have told my daughter some things because I know my daughter would really get upset with her. The way she talked, she would say, "Mom's just talking crazy again, I can't stand it."
Yeah. So, were you guys ever taken together at the same time?
That's what she said. She said we were that first time. Well, actually, no, wait a minute. It's, no, she says I wasn't taken. She said, it was only her the second time. And the first time, it wasn't the fact that we were taken. It was that we were, something was done to me out in the field.
Yeah, you had
Where
contact.
the cows were. She never really said anything about like being taken on a spaceship or anything like that.
It was more of a metaphysical type experience for her.
Yeah. Let me read one thing here that she did. That she told me.
Yeah, please.
In this, she says, it's an actual. She says that in fact, she wrote an autobiography, and I don't know where it is. I've been trying to find it. My daughter, she had a safety deposit box. She wrote a whole lot of, she said, of her experiences in her autobiography. And it's an actual, and then one of them was, it's an actual occurrence. I awoke to intense sexual feelings. He, my soulmate, may have been subjected to an electric appliance, or someone was actually taking him, and went back to sleep and had a most peculiar astral projection. I was out of my body and riding high above the trees in the night. I looked up, and from the south approached a wind. From the north, black rolling clouds with a light in the middle. Both were coming together over my head with tremendous speed. I assumed my body would be hit by lightning. The instant I feared, my astral spirit started to descend back into the car as the ground and trees became larger. I then felt a warmth in my spinal area. Once awake, I heard a semblance of service, which seemed to be a cult in the basement, and it then dissipated into their voices, the ones I usually hear. She heard voices all the time.
How about you? Have you ever heard any voices?
No.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. At the end of the Chronicles, is there a clear, concise answer to everything?
At the end of the Chronicles, okay, yeah, you want me to, I'll read you my what do they call that at the end of the epilogue?
Yeah.
I said, surely by now you are convinced that my story, derived from some true events in my life, blended with my imagination. After all, okay, I'm going to give you a couple of spoilers here.
All right. Sounds good to me.
It says, after all, time travel and being cloned, come on, everybody knows that's totally sci-fi stuff. But then there's always the possibility that if, and then I'm going to leave that blank, the abductors, or I'll call it the abductors, really does exist, then they could have manipulated my mind to convince me that my reality is my imagination. The truth is out there somewhere. How, when, or if it will ever be exposed is, for now, probably good material for the X-Files. That's how I end my book.
All right. So what made you start to write your memoirs to begin with? Was there, I know you said you always had an urge to become an author, but was there a turning point because it sounds like that's where everything starts off, right there. And then once you did the fasting and all that, then things really got deep for you.
Well, like I said, when I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know what to write. So my wife gave me the idea to write my memoirs, because she said I had a very interesting life. She knows I had told her everything about me. She, the wife I have now.
Okay.
We've been married 22 some years now.
Congratulations.
And she knows everything about me. I told her everything. So that's why she suggested, she said, Tom, when you pass away, nobody's going to know your memories. You're going to take them to the grave with you. If you don't write them down, they'll be lost and gone forever. And basically, I just kind of, I'll just write my memoirs. And I kind of thought maybe I figured I'd just be a history book for my relatives, to see where all my craziness came from, maybe.
Yeah.
So that's what inspired me to go ahead and do my memoirs, because like my wife said, if all these memories will be lost and gone forever, turn to dust, when I turn to dust.
Yeah.
So now I got a history, it's like a history book. And I've got my family tree in it, stuff like that,
Yeah. Now, what about other paranormal events? Have you ever been subject to other paranormal events, like seen a ghost, anything crazy like that?
Oh, yeah. If you read my blogs, we had a ghost in our house one night. In fact, we've had a ghost walking around the neighborhood. When I first built my house, I live on a lake. And in fact, in my memoirs, I wrote about the experience. It's a chapter called The Ghost Bus. It's called my mind's going blank. It's called the Bump in the Night. It's you can find that. It was one of my blogs.
All right.
It's called A Bump in the Night. And in my book, I have chapters. I've related my chapters to songs. The song I would to bring back a lot of memories. How songs remind us of certain things and certain times in our life.
Yeah.
So every one of my chapters, I start out with a song, when I got married for the third time. The name of the chapter is "Waiting for a Girl Like You," and I took that song. So long I've been looking so too hard. It's been waiting too long. I've been praying for a girl like you to come into my life. You know that song?
Yeah.
I've been waiting for a girl like you.
Yeah, that's a good song.
Yeah, I named all my chapters. Took all my chapters from songs.
I like that idea.
Which makes my book a little bit more unique.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm a big music guy myself, so I really enjoy that.
Like one time I had 2 girlfriends and I didn't know which one to pick, so I named this chapter "Love the One You're With." Remember that song?
Oh yeah.
Love the one you're with, huh? If you can't wait to be with the one you love the one you're with.
Exactly.
All right, I use songs. A lot of my people that have reviewed my books, they 99% of them really thought that was unique. It was the first time they ever read a book that an author did that.
Yeah, that is really unique. I've never heard of anything like that before.
Yeah, and just like when I was dating a girl from Saudi Arabia, and that's a no-no. You don't do that. And so that name of that chapter is Poison Ivy.
That's awesome. So you have had a lot of paranormal experiences in your life then, other than the abduction.
Other than the abductions, yes.
It's pretty interesting because a lot of times I'm starting to find out those go hand in hand anymore. Like there's a connection there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A lot more and more people I talk with, the more that's becoming a thing where it's crossing over. Like a lot of times people that have had contact or abduction experiences or anything like that, they have had those experiences in the past, or those experiences get even more intense afterwards.
Well, what really started me thinking when I started writing my memoirs was when I first got my first car. I was like 17 years old.
Yep.
And I wrote this is in my memoirs. Plus, it's in my it's in the Abduction Chronicles too. In fact, I think I opened the book was the very first chapter, I think, and you said you read the first chapter.
Yep.
You read the bequest about the car accident.
Oh,
you read that?
Yeah, I did.
The car accident, yeah. Now that right there is how in the world did I survive that car accident? There was no seat belts, no air mattresses, and the car completely turned over. And when I was still sitting behind the steering wheel like I was just driving the car. Yet when I couldn't even get out of the car. Remember, but the doors were jammed shut.
Yep.
Both sides. Okay. So I don't need to tell you that story because you just read it. But anyway, that's kind of what started me thinking about something unusual happened that night, you know?
Yeah, no, please tell this.
That was when I was 17.
Tell a little bit of the story so that the listeners can hear and maybe get them interested.
Do what now?
Let's tell a little bit of the story so that maybe the listeners who haven't read it yet will get interested in it.
Okay, as you know, I was taking a drive out to the city dump to, back in those days, you know, we dumped our trash out to the city dump, and that was one of my errands. I was 17 years old, getting ready to go into the Navy. I only had a few months left, and I was coming back home, and I seen some really bright lights in the back of the car. You know, that they were so bright that the rear view mirror was blinding me, and I couldn't really see. And the next thing I remember, I was sitting. The car wasn't moving. It was the 2 front wheels were embedded in an embankment that ran alongside the road, and the front windshield was cracked, and the side windshield was cracked, and the car was still running, and the radio was still playing, and I even think I don't remember the song right now, but I have it in my book what song was playing, and I couldn't get out of the car, and so I ended up having to bust a window out with my foot to get out of the car, because I tried backing it up out of the ditch, and the wheels would just spin. So that's why I had tried to get out of the car. So I had to bust a window out on the driver's side. And when I looked at the car, both sides had scrapes all from front to back. The doorknobs had been completely, like somebody had just sawed them off, you know. So, and the front, like I say, the front top of the car was dented in, which caused the front glass to spider web. You know, it was like watching a big spider web.
Yeah.
And I walked around. The lights were still on. The lights were still working. And this, like I say, I had no airbags, no seatbelt, yet I was sitting right behind the wheel like I was just still driving the car. And it was obvious that the car had turned over, you know, from the damage that I could see. That the car had to have turned over to sustain that much damage. And I don't remember anything from the time that I saw the bright lights in the back of the, you know, blinded me in the rear view mirror till the time it was really weird, because my next thought was, I'm sitting there, the car's running, the song is playing on the radio, and the headlights are shining, you know, into the woods, because I'm opposite, and I'm not parallel with the road anymore. I'm facing into in this embankment. Now, isn't that weird?
That is weird.
And I drove the car. I ended up a guy come along with a tractor, and he mentioned something to me. He said, I was wondering what all them lights was doing, going all over the place. And I was thinking, well, maybe he just saw me in a distance, the car actually turn over, and maybe the headlights shining all over the place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I thought maybe that's probably what he was talking about, because he said that. I didn't really think anything of it until later. You know, when I was writing the book, then it kind of occurred to me. You know, that guy did say he saw some weird lights, you know, doing some weird things, and of course, in my Abduction Chronicles, I think I added, like I say, some imagination to the story. But like I say, you know, I don't know if it's really imagination or not.
Yeah,
maybe it's not. You know.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. So you think something was the abductors were trying to get you that night? You think that's what happened?
That could have. It's a possibility. You know, that could have been my first one.
Yeah, and you didn't put two and two together until you're getting ready to write that book. That's fascinating.
And then, of course, I married somebody that later on claimed that we both were abductions, because a lot of people that have been abducted once, they get abducted again.
Yes.
And so, I don't know, maybe that's why they chose her and me. That, according to her, of course, she would. I don't think I ever told her about that car wreck. I don't know if I ever told her about the car wreck.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It sounds to me like that was your first time.
Could have been the first time, yeah. Because it's how in the world do you explain somebody? Now, I mean, I should have been thrown all over that car and had all kinds of injuries, you know, from the. Even though the car was still running and I drove it home, it was obvious that the thing had skidded on both sides and had landed also on top, because it had a dent on the top. So it had to have turned over. The car had to turn completely over and landed back up on its four wheels. And I'm still sitting there in the driver's seat like nothing happened.
No injuries, nothing.
Not a scratch on me.
Wow.
Well, wait a minute. I'll take that back. I did have a scratch on my I did have a scratch on my elbow, my left elbow, and I could tell that it hit the window because the window was spider-webbed. The driver's side door window was spider-webbed. Oh, and another thing I maybe I should mention. When I was about 14 years old, this is like maybe 3 or 4 years earlier, I had a weird experience. I woke up one morning, you know, like a young, I was just at that age where I was starting to have, what do they call them? Wet dreams.
Yeah.
I was starting to have wet dreams. I woke up one morning and there was blood in my semen. I didn't think anything about it, and my mom did the laundry, so of course she saw it, and so she's screaming at Dad. And look at this. So they said, well, you better take me to the doctor. So they took me to the doctor, and the doctor examined me, and he said, somehow Tom got damage to the inside of his what do they call that? Where you pee from, your penis?
Yeah, urethra, whatever it is.
The tube that you pee out of?
Yeah, I think it's urethra, I think it is.
Yeah, he said somehow it was damaged. He said it was like somebody had stuck something up in my penis and damaged the channel, you know, where your pee comes out.
Yeah.
He said it was damaged. And he looked at me and he says, have you been sticking something up your penis? And I go, hell no, why would I want to do that? That would hurt. That would hurt like hell, you know?
Yeah.
And the doctors just, and my folks just kind of, you know, thought maybe I was a little weird, you know. Hell, I'm not going to be sticking something up my penis.
Right.
But anyway, the doctor would claim that that's why I had blood in my semen, because the inside track of my penis was damaged. And the only thing that he could figure out how it would get damaged is if I stuck something up it.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, well, I didn't stick nothing up it. So that might have been the first.
Yeah, you know, you may have had this going on for a long time, and you just, their little mind games just may work really well on you.
Well, anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's good enough. I like it. So, there's no other books in the plans yet?
Not unless something comes in my head.
I think you should...
Well, I'll take that back. I do have a Abduction Chronicles 2. No, I see. Might see what I have been working on it, but like my other books, remember I told you I wrote them in just a matter of just a few weeks, really, and I didn't have to stop and think about the story.
Yeah.
Well, this new book that I'm working on now, it's called Abduction 3. Okay?
All right.
I've really got writer's block on it.
You need to fast again.
It's called The Warrior's Revenge.
Ooh.
I got it's the Abduction Chronicles sequel. And right now, I started writing it about a year and a half ago. And I've only got 13 pages.
Wow.
I've got writer's block. I just can't get into it like I did the other books. The information is just not there in my mind, you know what I mean? I think
you should seriously consider the hypnosis. And
hypnosis?
Yeah, and see what happens there. Maybe that opens it all up for you, and you know completely what happens, and then you have plenty of material to write on.
Well, yeah.
I know it's probably a scary thing. I don't know if I would do it myself either, but
Yeah.
It may be, I don't know. I'm a curious person. I'm just a big scaredy cat too, you know?
Yeah. It's, I guess that's food for thought.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Because like I say, I definitely got writer's cramp on this one, on this book.
Well, I think that with what you've written already, I think that you have a pretty good basis for saying that something happened to you. And whether you believe it or not, material like that doesn't just come that easy to anybody, I don't believe. And I think that it was there for a reason, and something said it's your time to get the word out. And I don't know, maybe, the regression will help you.
Yeah. Like you say, I guess it's something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, I'm going to let you go here. I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me and talking to the audience.
I appreciate you having me on. Don't forget to read my ghost story. Now, I'm pretty sure that one's true. I remember it clear as a bell.
That's awesome.
But the thing is, after that happened, we haven't had any other experiences. It's been completely quiet since the day that happened.
So you just, I'll read it. That's on your blog, right?
It's on my blog. It's called, what would I say? It's called the...
Bump in the Night?
Bump in the Night, yeah. Bump in the Night.
Yeah, I'll check that out for sure.
Okay.
And I think I'm going to, since I only read the first chapter, I think I'm going to go back and read the memoirs first and then make a whole run of the whole thing.
Yeah, because you can see when you read my memoirs, you can see how when I wrote the Abduction Chronicles, you can see how I took the two and blended them. Well, what I thought was reality and what I thought maybe might be imagination.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really interested in reading that now. So I'm gonna reverse and start over there, because I want to be able to put the stories all together myself too. And maybe somebody out there reading these will be able to connect more of the dots,
Yeah.
Well, Thomas, I really appreciate you coming on and taking time to talk with me and talking with my audience and sharing your book and your experiences. And I really appreciate it, sir.
Yes, sir. And thank you for having me on.
Well, that about does it for Dreamland tonight, dreamers. Thanks again for listening, and good night.